The Duke of Ravenshire called his wife a poisoner, while their 8-year-old son convulsed beneath his hands. Then, before the child had drawn another breath, he signed the accusation that placed her under guard. Helena stared at Julian across the bed. For one suspended moment, she did not recognize the man she had married. His evening coat hung open, his dark hair had fallen across his brow, and terror had stripped every trace of rank from his face. Yet his hand remained steady as he returned the pen to the magistrate. "Your Grace," Helena said, "Arthur needs heir, not accusations. Open the curtains." No one moved. She crossed the nursery herself and pulled the heavy velvet aside. Cold night air entered through the narrow gap in the window. Behind her, Arthur's heels struck the mattress again. Helena turned immediately. "Roll him onto his side." "Doctor," Silas Wren stepped between her and the bed. "You will not touch the boy. He is choking. He is suffering from poison administered by your hand." A shocked murmur passed among the servants gathered near the door. Helena saw Mrs. Bell, Arthur's nurse, press both hands to her mouth. The magistrate looked down at the signed statement as if he wished he had not come. Julian lifted Arthur onto his side. The child coughed, and the terrible stiffness in his limbs briefly eased. Helena's relief lasted less than a second. His lips were pale. His pulse, when she had touched it 20 minutes earlier, had been unnaturally slow. Foxglove might explain both symptoms, but not the bitter almond scent she had noticed in the emptied cup. "His medicine," she said. "Show me what he was given." Wren's expression remained composed. "A sleeping draught prepared in your dispensary." "I prepared no draught tonight." He pointed toward the dressing table. Beside a guttering candle stood a brown glass bottle bearing Helena's handwritten label. Her stomach tightened. The writing looked like hers from across the room. The sloping capital letters, the narrow spacing, even the small line she habitually drew beneath a dosage, all had been imitated. Julian followed her gaze. Pain hardened into something colder. "It was found in your locked cabinet. Then someone opened it. You have the only key." "I had the only key." The distinction reached him. She saw it in the brief narrowing of his eyes. There it was, the moment in which he might have questioned what had been arranged so neatly before him. Then Wren said softly, "Your Grace, delay may cost your son his life." Julian looked away from Helena. "Remove her." The constable took her arm. She did not resist. Her father had taught her that panic wasted the seconds a sick child could not spare. "Arthur must not be given another drop until the bottle is examined," she said. "Send for Dr. Pritchard in York." Wren's mouth tightened. A second physician would lose hours we do not possess. A truthful physician would welcome another opinion. Julian's face changed at the insult. "You stand beside our son's bed accused of poisoning him, and still you speak as though you command this room." "I speak as his mother." "You will not use that word to shield yourself." The sentence struck more deeply than the constable's grip. Helena's breath caught, but she refused to let the servants watch her break. She looked past Julian to Arthur. On the bedside table lay Wren's engraved silver medicine case. Candlelight slid over its polished lid and illuminated a shallow crescent-shaped scratch near the clasp. Helena had seen that mark before, 12 years earlier, when she was still assisting her father in his village practice. A young miller's wife had died after an ordinary fever. Wren had been the attending surgeon. Her father had questioned the medicine administered during the woman's final hour, but the bottle disappeared before it could be examined. Helena remembered Wren closing a silver case beside the corpse. She remembered the crescent scratch. Now one compartment stood open. Its ivory label read laudanum, yet the bitter almond scent clung to the hinge. Helena stopped breathing. "Where did you obtain that case?" Wren closed it with a sharp click. "Constable, remove her at once." Arthur stirred. His eyelids fluttered, and a faint sound escaped him. Helena pulled against the constable. "Arthur?" The boy's gaze found her through the crowded room. "Mama didn't give it to me," he whispered. Silence fell. Julian turned toward the bed. "Arthur, who did?" The child's lips moved. Wren reached him first and pressed a folded cloth over his mouth, claiming he was wiping away spittle. Arthur's eyes widened. His fingers clawed weakly at the physician's sleeve. Helena tore free of the constable. "Take that cloth away from him." Julian caught her before she reached the bed. The constable seized both her arms, but Helena kept her eyes fixed on the cloth. A faint yellow stain marked one corner. Wren thrust it into his coat. "He requires quiet," the physician said. "Her presence is worsening the seizure." "My presence?" Helena demanded, or what he was about to say. Julian's grip loosened. For one heartbeat, doubt entered his face. Then Wren opened the nursery door and called for 2 footmen. "The Duchess must be confined where she cannot reach the child, the medicine, or the witnesses." Julian did not correct him. As Helena was dragged into the corridor, she saw Wren slip the silver case beneath his coat. Something small fell from it and rolled under the bed, a blue glass vial sealed with yellow wax. On that wax was the faint impression of a raven, not the crest of Ravenshire, the crest of Julian's dead elder brother, whose unexplained illness had made Julian the Duke 9 years earlier. Helena finally understood. This accusation had not begun with Arthur's poisoned cup, and her son was not the first Ravenshire heir Dr. Silas Wren had attended. The footman dragged Helena down the corridor while Arthur's nursery door closed behind her. She twisted once not to escape, but to look back. Through the narrowing gap, she saw Julian standing motionless beside the bed. Dr. Wren was already reaching into his coat for the yellow-stained cloth. Then the door shut. "Take me to the east room," Helena told the constable. "You are to be confined in the north tower. The tower has no fire, no clean water, and no bell. If my son worsens, no one will be able to question me quickly." The constable hesitated. He was a broad, greying man named Thomas Reed, whose youngest daughter Helena had treated during a winter fever. He avoided her eyes. The Duke's order was explicit. The Duke signed an accusation. He did not order you to endanger a prisoner before any charge has been heard. Reed's grip slackened. "The east room, then, but the door remains locked." Helena allowed herself to be led there. The chamber had once belonged to Julian's aunt. A narrow bed stood beneath faded green curtains, and rain tapped against the windows. Reed dismissed the footman, inspected the fireplace, and placed a chair beneath the outer door handle. "Mrs. Bell will bring water," he said quietly. "Arthur needs more than water. I cannot help you reach him. You can help me discover what happened before I entered the nursery." Reed looked toward the corridor. "I was summoned after the boy became ill." "Who summoned you?" "Dr. Wren's assistant arrived at my house shortly after 9. Helena went still. She had not been called to Arthur's room until nearly 9:30. Wren had arranged for a constable before Helena had even seen her sick child. "Did the assistant bring a written message?" Reed touched his breast pocket, then withdrew a folded note. "The magistrate received another like it." Helena held out her hand. "I should not give this to you," then read the time written at the top. His eyes moved across the page. A crease appeared between his brows. 8:45. At that hour, Helena had been in the tenant's dispensary, treating an injured stable boy. Arthur had eaten supper, but had shown no sign of illness. "Keep that note," she said. "Do not let Dr. Wren know you still possess it." Reed folded it again. Why would he summon us before the poisoning? Because the accusation was prepared before the symptoms began. Footsteps approached. Reed moved away from her just as Mrs. Bell entered, carrying a pitcher and basin. The nurse's face was swollen from crying. She set down the tray without looking at Helena. "How is he?" "Sleeping. Sleeping naturally. Dr. Wren gave him something." Helena crossed the room. "What?" "I do not know. You have cared for Arthur since his birth. You know every bottle permitted in his nursery." Mrs. Bell's lower lip trembled. "His Grace ordered me not to discuss the treatment. His Grace does not know that Wren covered Arthur's mouth when he tried to speak." The pitcher rattled against the basin. Helena caught the nurse's wrist. "What happened before I was called?" Mrs. Bell glanced toward Reed. He turned his back and inspected the window latch. "Arthur complained that his stomach hurt after supper," the nurse whispered. "Dr. Wren was already in the house. He said he had come to examine Lady Margaret's headaches." Julian's widowed mother had occupied the West Wing since the death of her elder son. She had insisted for months that Wren become the family's permanent physician. "What did Arthur eat?" "Broth, bread, and baked apple. I tasted everything first. And his evening tonic." Mrs. Bell's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I gave him the usual spoonful from the bottle in the nursery cabinet. He said it tasted different." "Different how?" "Like burnt fruit. Bitter almonds." Helena released her wrist. Who opened the cabinet? I did. Dr. Wren gave me the key. My key? He said you had sent it. Helena's hand moved instinctively to the chain at her waist. The dispensary key still hung there. She removed it and placed it on the table. Mrs. Bell stared. Then whose key did I use? A copy. Helena had spent 6 years maintaining the estate dispensary. Because Wren's accounts were unreliable and his treatments too costly for the tenants, she recorded every preparation, every patient, and every dose. Infant deaths had fallen by half. Winter fever no longer swept through the cottages unchecked. Julian had once praised her work. After his brother's death, however, he had begun to fear anything he could not control. Wren had fed that fear carefully, suggesting that Helena's medical knowledge made her secretive, improper, and dangerously independent. Now that same knowledge had become evidence against her. A bell rang violently somewhere above them. Mrs. Bell turned pale. The nursery. Helena reached the door, but Reed blocked her path. You gave your word, he said. I gave no word. The Duke ordered. A child screamed overhead. Helena stopped fighting him. Force would only confirm Wren's account of a desperate, guilty woman. Instead, she faced Mrs. Bell. Listen carefully. Do not allow Wren to burn Arthur's sheets, empty his basin, or remove the cup beside his bed. Save everything, even if it seems unimportant. The nurse nodded. And find the blue vial beneath the bed. Mrs. Bell's expression changed. What is it? Helena asked. I saw that vial this afternoon. Where? In Lady Margaret's hand. The bell rang again, then abruptly fell silent. Mrs. Bell fled into the corridor. Reed locked the door behind her. Helena stood alone, staring at the duplicate key on the table, not a crude copy, but a finely cut key, requiring access to the original long enough to take its impression. Only 3 people had entered her dressing room that week: Mrs. Bell, Julian, and Lady Margaret. A shadow moved beneath the door. A folded scrap of paper slid across the floor. Helena snatched it up. The message contained only 6 words, written in Arthur's unsteady hand. Grandmama said it would make me sleep. Before Helena could call Reed, smoke began curling through the keyhole. Helena dropped to her knees and pressed her palm against the floorboards. They were cold. The smoke was not rising from beneath the room, it was being forced through the keyhole from the corridor. She seized the water pitcher, soaked the bed cover, and pushed the wet fabric against the gap under the door. Then she wrapped another damp strip around her mouth. Reed! She shouted. No answer came. The smoke thickened. Helena crossed to the window and forced up the lower sash. The east room stood 2 floors above a stone courtyard. There was no balcony, but a rain gutter ran beneath the sill toward the servants' wing. She picked up a brass candlestick and struck it repeatedly against the iron frame. The noise carried through the storm. A kitchen maid appeared at a window across the courtyard. Fire! Helena called. Bring men to the east corridor. The girl vanished. Helena returned to the door. Arthur's note still lay in her hand. If the room burned, the message would disappear with her. She folded it into the smallest square she could manage, pushed it inside the brass candlestick's hollow base, and tightened the felt covering beneath it. Someone outside turned the key. The door opened, and Helena threw the remaining water toward the figure entering. Dr. Wren staggered back with a curse. Behind him, a basket of smoking wool stood against the wall. Thomas Reed lay unconscious beside it, blood darkening the hair above his temple. Wren kicked the basket away. What have you done? He demanded. Helena stepped into the corridor and knelt beside Reed. His pulse was strong. The wound appeared shallow, but the sweet odor on his collar told her he had inhaled more than smoke. I might ask you the same question. I smelled burning and came to help, with no servant and no alarm. His eyes moved toward her right hand. He had noticed the missing paper. Before he could search her, men rushed up the servants' staircase carrying buckets. The kitchen maid followed them, breathless and frightened. Helena pointed to the smoking basket. Take it into the courtyard. Do not burn or discard the wool. Wren laughed sharply. The Duchess now gives orders from confinement. The senior footman, Mr. Hale, looked from Helena to Reed's body. His wife had survived a difficult childbirth because Helena had recognized the bleeding before the midwife did. He lifted the basket. Set it down, Wren commanded. Hale did not move. Helena met his eyes. Please preserve it exactly as it is. The word please decided him. He carried the basket downstairs. It was Helena's first victory of the night, not freedom, not vindication, but one object removed from Wren's control. Wren watched it go. His calm expression did not change, yet she saw the calculation behind it. Until that moment, he had considered her frightened and isolated. Now he understood that the household might still obey her. Julian appeared at the far end of the corridor with Lady Margaret beside him. His mother wore a silver-grey wrapper over her nightdress, but her hair was perfectly arranged. In one hand, she held a ring of household keys. Helena noticed the newest key immediately. Its narrow stem and double-cut teeth matched the one from her dispensary. Lady Margaret closed her fingers around the ring. "What has she done now?" she asked. "Someone attempted to smoke me out of a locked room," Helena replied. Julian looked at Wren. "I found the corridor in this condition," the physician said. "The constable must have overturned a warming basket before he collapsed." "There was no warming basket in the room," Helena said. "It was placed outside the door." Julian knelt beside Reed. "Is he alive?" "Yes, but he has been struck." Julian looked up. His gaze settled on the wound, then on Wren's dry shoes. Rainwater covered the corridor floor where the bucket carriers had passed, yet Wren's boots bore fine black ash along the edges. "You said you had only just arrived." Wren followed his gaze. "I stepped near the basket when I opened the door. It was possible, barely." Julian rose. "Why was Helena's door opened at all?" "To save her life." "You ordered her confined there," Helena said. "How did you know which room Reed chose?" For the first time, Wren did not answer immediately. Lady Margaret moved between them. "My grandson may be dying while you indulge her tricks. Silas came because I sent him to ensure the prisoner remained secure." Helena turned toward her. "Arthur said you gave him something to make him sleep." Julian's face tightened. "Arthur has said no such thing," Lady Margaret replied. Helena reached toward the candlestick, then stopped. If she revealed the note now, Wren or Margaret would destroy it. Arthur's handwriting required authentication by someone beyond their influence. "My son spoke before I was removed. He was delirious," Julian said. "He knew me. He was poisoned. And you have still not asked why Wren summoned the magistrate 45 minutes before Arthur became ill." Silence followed. Thomas Reed groaned. His eyes opened, unfocused at first. Then he saw Wren and tried to move away. "The note," he muttered. Julian crouched beside him. "What note?" "The doctor's man brought it before 9. Said the Duchess had poisoned the boy." Julian slowly turned toward Wren. Helena watched doubt return to her husband's face, stronger than before. Wren lowered his voice. "Arthur's symptoms began earlier than Mrs. Bell realized. I sent for legal protection when I discovered the altered medicine. Would you have preferred that I wait until the boy was dead?" Julian's jaw flexed. Once again, fear won. "Take Reed to the servants' infirmary," he ordered. "Helena will be moved to the old schoolroom. 2 guards this time." He had seen the contradiction and chosen not to pursue it. Helena looked at the man who had once trusted her with every weakness he possessed. "If Arthur dies," she said, "it will not be because you lacked a warning. It will be because you kept choosing the person who frightened you over the person asking you to look." Julian flinched, but he did not release her. Lady Margaret removed the new key from her ring and handed it to Wren. "Search the Duchess before she is moved." Wren approached Helena. His gaze fell upon the brass candlestick in her hand. "That belongs in the room." "So did I." He reached for it. Helena let the candlestick slip from her fingers. It struck the floor hard enough to dent the base, but the hidden note remained inside. A small disc of green felt broke loose and spun beneath a cabinet. Wren bent to retrieve the candlestick, never noticing it. Helena did. Stamped on the underside of the fallen felt was the name of the craftsman who had repaired Ravenshire's candlesticks for 20 years. If Arthur's message survived, that man could later prove the base had remained sealed before this night. As the guards escorted Helena away, Wren glanced at Lady Margaret. No words passed between them. None were necessary. Both now knew Helena had seen too much, and confinement was no longer sufficient. The guards marched Helena toward the old schoolroom, with Dr. Wren following close behind. At the head of the staircase, she heard Arthur cry out again. This time, the sound ended in a wet, broken cough. Helena stopped so suddenly that one guard collided with her. "He cannot clear his throat." Wren continued walking. The seizure has exhausted him. No, something is collecting in his lungs. You diagnose that through a closed door. I heard it. Lady Margaret appeared behind Wren. Take her away before she unsettles the entire house. Helena looked at the younger guard, Samuel Pike. His mother lived in one of the estate cottages and suffered from the same winter congestion Helena had treated for years. Samuel, you know that sound. His face changed. Wren noticed. A servant's opinion is not required. Helena raised her voice so it would carry toward the nursery. Mrs. Bell, turn Arthur face down across your knees and strike between his shoulders. Do not give him another liquid. A door opened overhead. Wren seized Helena's arm. Silence her. Then Mrs. Bell screamed, He is not breathing. Samuel released Helena. She ran. The second guard reached for her but caught only her sleeve. The fabric tore at the shoulder as she climbed the stairs. Julian emerged from the nursery, just as Helena reached it. Get back. Move. Something in her voice made him obey. Arthur lay limp across Mrs. Bell's lap. A pale lump of soaked cloth protruded between his lips. Helena swept one finger along the inside of his cheek and pulled it free. It was a wad of linen saturated with a thick, sweet-smelling fluid, the same cloth Wren had pressed over Arthur's mouth. Helena turned the boy face down and struck firmly between his shoulder blades, once, twice. On the third blow, Arthur coughed. Air rushed into him with a ragged gasp. Mrs. Bell began to sob. Helena pressed her ear against his back. His breathing remained shallow, but both sides of his chest moved. She wrapped him in a blanket and raised his chin. Keep him warm. Give him no wine, tonic, or sleeping draught. Wren entered the room. He recovered because the medicine took effect, he announced. Helena stared at him. He recovered because I removed the cloth obstructing his throat. Wren picked up the wet linen with 2 fingers. A compress placed by the nurse, no doubt. Mrs. Bell looked horrified. I placed nothing in his mouth. Lady Margaret stepped beside the physician. The poor woman is distraught. She may not remember. Julian looked from the cloth to Helena. He had watched her restore their son's breath. He had seen Wren arrive only afterward. Still, he said nothing when Wren dropped the linen into the fireplace. Helena moved faster. She seized the brass tongs and snatched it from the flames before they caught. The edge blackened, but most of the fabric remained intact. Give that to me, Wren demanded. Helena handed it to Thomas Reed, who had appeared in the doorway supported by Mr. Hale. A bandage circled the constable's head. Seal it in a clean jar, she told him. Write down where it was found, who touched it, and the exact time. Reed closed his hand around the cloth. Julian's expression darkened. You are treating my house as a court of evidence. Because someone inside it tried to kill our child. You remain the principal suspect. And yet I am the only person in this room who has saved his life tonight. The words struck Julian hard enough to show. Lady Margaret stepped forward. How conveniently heroic. First she poisons him, then performs a little country trick before witnesses. A murmur passed through the servants. Helena saw doubt spreading in the wrong direction. Her success was being reshaped into part of the accusation. Wren examined Arthur and rested 2 fingers against his neck. The crisis has passed, he declared. My treatment stabilized him. Julian exhaled in relief. Helena almost laughed, but the cruelty of it stopped her. Wren had endangered Arthur. She had restored his breathing, and within seconds the physician had claimed the result as his own. Arthur opened his eyes. Mama. Helena reached for him. Julian blocked her. The child's small hand remained extended between them. Please, Helena whispered. Julian's face tightened, but he did not move. Helena lowered her arm. That refusal became the boundary she could no longer cross for him. She would protect Arthur, but she would not beg Julian to recognize her as his wife or the boy's mother. Mrs. Bell, she said, count his pulse every quarter hour. Record each number. If it falls below 50, send for me, regardless of any order. Wren gave a dismissive smile. The nurse takes instructions from the family physician. Mrs. Bell looked at Arthur, then at Helena. I will record it. The quiet answer cost the nurse her position. Helena saw the panic in Mrs. Bell's face. The woman had no husband, no savings, and a younger sister dependent upon her wages. If she goes, I go with her, Helena said. Julian stared at her. You are under confinement. Then confine Mrs. Bell with me. Otherwise, she leaves this house tonight carrying everything she witnessed to the magistrate in York. It was a bluff. Helena had no authority to promise safe passage. But Lady Margaret did not know that. "Keep her," Julian said. Under guard. Helena had protected the nurse, but the choice cost her the last possibility of private movement. Wren ordered both women taken to the schoolroom and posted Samuel outside the door. As they were led away, "Mrs. Bell whispered, 'There is something I did not tell you.'" Helena waited until the lock turned behind them. The nurse reached inside her cuff and removed a narrow strip of paper. "I found this beneath Arthur's tonic bottle." It was a torn section of a treatment chart. Helena recognized Wren's handwriting and the list of Arthur's doses. At the bottom appeared a second patient's name, Frederick Ravenshire, Julian's elder brother. Beside both names, Wren had written the same three-letter symbol, BH7. "Do you know what it means?" Mrs. Bell asked. "Not yet." Helena examined the paper against the candlelight. Tiny punctures ran along one edge, evenly spaced, as though the strip had once been sewn into something, rather than bound in a medical ledger. Then she remembered the medicine satchels her father had examined after the Belhaven deaths. Their inner linings had been stitched with numbered paper slips to identify experimental compounds. B.H. did not mean Belhaven House. It meant Belhaven Hospital. The institution had supposedly closed 12 years ago. Footsteps approached outside. Julian's voice came through the door. "Helena, Wren says you forged the chart found in your possession. Give it to me, and I will compare it with his records myself." S. Helena looked at the paper, then at Mrs. Bell. For the third time that night, Julian had been offered a chance to examine the truth. But this time, Helena would decide whether he had earned the right to hold it. Helena folded the treatment chart once and slipped it inside her bodice. "No." The silence beyond the schoolroom door deepened. Julian tried the handle, but Samuel had locked it from the corridor under Wren's instructions. "Open this door," the Duke ordered. The key turned immediately. Julian entered alone. His eyes went first to Mrs. Bell, then to the torn sleeve of Helena's gown. For an instant, shame crossed his face. It disappeared when he saw her hand resting over the hidden chart. "Give it to me, so you can give it to Wren." "I said I would examine it. You also said you would protect our son, yet Wren remains beside his bed after Arthur identified someone else." "He identified no one. He said I did not give him the medicine." A frightened child defended his mother. "A poisoned child contradicted your physician." Julian closed the door behind him. "You are asking me to believe that the man who attended my family for 12 years poisoned both my brother and my son. I am asking you to investigate before you sign away another life." The reference to his brother struck precisely where Wren had spent years making Julian vulnerable. Frederick had been everything Julian believed. He was not confident, admired, and born to inherit. After Frederick's sudden death, Julian had received the title, the estate, and whispers that he had secretly wanted both. Wren had been the only man who publicly defended him. "You know what those accusations did to me," Julian said. "I know. That is why Wren chose this lie." His face hardened. "You turn every kindness he showed me into evidence against him, and every question I ask into evidence against me." Mrs. Bell shifted near the window. Julian noticed the movement. "Leave us." "She remains. I will speak to my wife privately. You stopped treating me as your wife when you signed that accusation." Pain flashed across his features. Helena almost softened. She remembered the young man who had once ridden 12 miles through a storm to bring medicine to her sick father. She remembered Julian asleep beside Arthur's cradle, one hand curled around the infant's blanket. Then she remembered him blocking her from their son's outstretched hand. "What would persuade you?" she asked. "Give me the chart. Send a rider to Belhaven Hospital first. The place has been closed for years. Then no one can object to an inspection." Julian looked toward the door. Helena saw the struggle in him. He wanted a path that would preserve his faith in Wren without condemning her completely. A knock interrupted them. Lady Margaret entered without waiting for permission. Wren and Magistrate Cole followed her. The magistrate carried a formal deposition. "Your Grace," Cole said, "Dr. Wren reports that the Duchess attempted to destroy evidence and interfere with the heir's treatment. He requests authority to remove the medical stores from her control." Wren placed Helena's dispensary key on the table. She touched the chain at her waist. Her own key was gone. He must have cut it free when he seized her arm outside the nursery. You stole that from me. I recovered estate property from a suspected criminal. The dispensary is protected by my marriage settlement. Its medicines and records were purchased with my pin money. Lady Margaret smiled. A wife accused of attempting to murder the heir cannot shelter poison behind a settlement. Cole opened the deposition. If His Grace signs, Dr. Wren will assume immediate control of the dispensary, treatment ledgers, medicines, and patient records until the inquiry concludes. Helena turned to Julian. There it was, the choice upon which everything depended. Do not sign it. Wren's voice remained calm. The boy may require an antidote stored among her preparations. He does not need an antidote selected by the man who poisoned him. Julian looked at Arthur's chart in Wren's hand, then at the magistrate's document. Helena stepped closer. My father's records are in that dispensary. Frederick's treatment may be among them. If Wren gains access, whatever remains will disappear. Or your forged evidence will, Lady Margaret said. Julian took the pen. Helena held his gaze. Send one neutral man with him. Hale, Reed, anyone who can record what Wren removes. Wren said nothing. His silence should have warned Julian. Instead, Julian signed. The scratch of the nib sounded louder than Arthur's scream had. Wren took the order before the ink dried. You have until dawn to inventory everything, Julian told him. I will begin immediately. No, Helena said. He wanted your authority, and you have given it to him. Wren paused at the door. For the first time, he allowed her to see satisfaction in his eyes. Helena turned back to Julian. Whatever he destroys tonight will bear your signature. I am trying to save our son. No, you are trying to save yourself from admitting that the man who defended you may have manufactured the danger from which he protected you. Julian recoiled. Magistrate Cole lowered his gaze. Lady Margaret ordered Samuel to restrain Helena, but she did not fight. Something inside her had become painfully clear. She would no longer try to save her marriage. Her task was to keep Arthur alive, protect Mrs. Bell and the tenants whose medical histories Wren now controlled, and preserve enough truth to expose what had happened. Whether Julian survived, the consequences of his choice was no longer hers to decide. A crash sounded from the courtyard. Mr. Hale shouted for water. Helena rushed to the window. Orange light rose behind the dispensary roof. Servants ran across the lawn, carrying buckets, but the inner windows were already burning. Wren stood beside her, watching the flames. You signed the order only moments ago, Helena said to Julian. Yet the fire was prepared before he received it. Julian stared at Wren. The physician's composure finally cracked. Before anyone could speak, a groom burst into the schoolroom. Your Grace, the young master is gone. Julian seized him by the coat. What do you mean, gone? Lady Margaret's carriage left through the north gate. Dr. Wren's assistant was driving it. Every face turned toward the Dowager Duchess. She stood perfectly still. Then, from the burning dispensary below, came the sharp explosion of sealed medicine bottles, and Helena realized the fire was not meant only to destroy her records. It was meant to conceal which poison had been packed into the carriage with her son. Julian released the groom and ran for the door. Have every horse saddled, close the north road, send men to the bridge. No one enters the dispensary yard, Helena shouted. The servants rushing downstairs stopped between their duke's command and hers. A second explosion shook the windows. Greenish smoke rolled from the dispensary roof and descended toward the courtyard, where men were still passing buckets hand to hand. Helena recognized the color. Copper arsenite, she said. Wren stored it with the rat poisons. Julian turned back. Arthur is in that carriage, and 30 people are breathing poison beneath this window. My son, our son, that is why you will pursue him while I keep your servants alive. She faced Samuel. Wet every scarf and cloth you can find. Cover the men's mouths and move them upwind. No one touches the green ash with bare hands. Wren edged toward the staircase. Helena pointed at him. Reed, do not let that man leave. The constable stepped into Wren's path despite the blood soaking through his bandage. I act under His Grace's authority, Wren said. You acted under mine, Julian replied, his voice dangerously low. Where has my son been taken? Wren drew the signed order from his coat. The heir suffered a renewed crisis. Your mother's carriage was the fastest available, and my assistant was instructed to transfer him to a private facility. What facility? Belhaven. The name silenced the room. Helena saw Julian understand that Wren had lied when he claimed the hospital had closed. You had no authority to remove him, Julian said. Wren held up the document. You granted me complete control over the heir's treatment and all medical arrangements necessary for his survival. I granted control of the dispensary. On treatment records, medicines, patients, and their removal when medically required. Magistrate Cole witnessed your signature. Julian seized the paper and read the clause he had failed to examine. Helena watched the colour leave his face. His title could command servants, tenants, and estate officers. It could not instantly undo a witnessed order he had signed and placed in the hands of a physician now claiming an emergency. Because Julian had formally accused Helena, he had also disqualified the one parent most able to challenge Wren's treatment. His own decision had removed them both from Arthur's bedside. I revoke it, he said. You may attempt to do so before a magistrate, Wren replied. Until then, interfering with the boy's treatment could be presented as an effort to conceal the Duchess's crime. Julian struck him. Wren fell against the wall, blood appearing at the corner of his mouth. Lady Margaret stepped forward. Enough! Julian turned on her. You provided the carriage. I provided transportation for my grandson. To Belhaven? To safety. From his mother or from anyone who might hear him speak. For the first time, Lady Margaret looked uncertain. That hesitation told Helena something important. Margaret knew Arthur had been removed, but she had not expected Belhaven to be named openly. Wren had begun acting beyond their agreement. Another cry rose from the courtyard. Helena ran downstairs. The dispensary roof had collapsed. Mr. Hale lay near the doorway, coughing violently, while a young scullery maid clawed at her throat beside him. Helena pulled the girl away from the smoke and washed her eyes with clean water. She ordered the servants to strip off contaminated outer garments and leave them on the stones. Do not make anyone vomit, she warned. Fresh air first, small amounts of water only. A footman pointed toward the burning doorway. The patient book is still inside. Helena's father's ledger. It contained 12 years of symptoms, treatments, births, deaths, and unusual illnesses across Ravenshire. If Frederick's case appeared anywhere, it would be there. For one desperate instant, Helena considered entering. Then the scullery maid collapsed against her. Helena let the ledger burn. Bring every injured person to the great hall, she ordered. It is now the infirmary. She chose the living over the evidence, even knowing Wren had arranged the choice. By the time Julian reached the courtyard in riding clothes, Helena had organized rows of blankets beneath the chandeliers. Mrs. Bell moved among the servants, recording names and symptoms. Julian stopped beside Mr. Hale. How many? 23 exposed, Helena said. 4 seriously, none dead yet. The last word struck him. The dispensary had been built with Helena's money. Its supplies served every family on the estate. Now its roof was gone, its medicines contaminated, and the records needed to treat the tenants had burned because Julian had handed Wren the key. He looked toward the flames. I will rebuild it. Helena did not pause in binding Hale's blistered hand. You cannot rebuild what those records remembered. A rider entered through the front doors, rain streaming from his coat. The North Bridge has been blocked, Your Grace. A wagon overturned across it. Move it. The axle was cut. It will take hours. Julian's authority had met another obstacle prepared before he knew he needed the road. Helena rose. There is a shepherd's track through Ashcombe Wood. The carriage cannot use it, but riders can. Julian ordered 6 men to follow him. You are not coming, he told Helena. I know Belhaven's old treatment wards. My father took me there once. You are under accusation, and you are the man whose signature delivered Arthur to them. He flinched. Helena turned to Mrs. Bell. Can you manage the hall? Yes. If Hale's breathing worsens, keep him upright. Do not let anyone use medicines recovered from the fire. She faced Julian again. I am not going to help you escape what you did. I am going because Arthur may have less than 3 hours before the next dose. How can you know that? Helena removed the torn treatment chart from her bodice and pointed to the symbol beside Arthur's name. BH7 does not identify a patient. It identifies a sequence. My father saw Belhaven physicians test compounds at fixed intervals, one dose at midnight, another 3 hours later, and a final dose at dawn. The long case clock in the entrance hall began striking 12. One heavy note followed another. Helena counted each one. When the final stroke faded, hoofbeats sounded outside. Wren was no longer beside Reed. A side door stood open, and one horse was missing from the stable line. He had escaped toward Belhaven. Julian looked at Helena. She did not offer reassurance. "If Wren reaches Arthur before we do," she said, "the next dose will be given at 3. They had 3 hours to cross 12 miles of flooded woodland, enter a hospital that officially did not exist, and recover a child whose father had legally placed him in the poisoner's care. Helena reached the stable before Julian's grooms had finished tightening the saddles. She chose Bramble, a sure-footed mare accustomed to the narrow tenant roads. Julian mounted his black hunter and led 4 men toward Ashcombe Wood. Rain had turned the shepherd's track into mud. Branches tore at Helena's damaged sleeve as Bramble climbed between the trees. Julian tried twice to move ahead, but his heavier horse slipped on the wet stones. "Follow my path," Helena called. "I know my own land. You know the hunting roads. I know where your tenants travel when those roads flood." She guided them through a break in the stone wall and down toward a row of cottages hidden below the ridge. Lanterns appeared ahead. The old parish schoolhouse stood among them, its windows glowing. Helena had converted the building into a winter clinic 3 years earlier, using money saved from her household allowance. It contained duplicate treatment notes, basic medicines, blankets and supplies that Wren knew nothing about. Mrs. Finch, the village midwife, opened the door before Helena dismounted. "Your Grace, we saw the dispensary burning. I need the Belhaven files my father left with you." Mrs. Finch's eyes moved toward Julian. Helena understood her hesitation. "You may trust the constable and Mr. Hale," the woman said, "but not anyone carrying Ravenshire authority." Julian looked at Helena. "What does she mean?" "It means the villagers learned that keeping one record in your house was unsafe." Mrs. Finch led them into the former classroom. Shelves lined the walls, filled with jars, folded linens, and carefully labeled boxes. A table held copies of every treatment Helena had given during the previous 5 winters. Julian stared at the dates. "You maintained all this, while Wren sent you accounts for medicines he never delivered." She opened a locked cabinet. Inside lay her father's old case notes from Belhaven Hospital. Most concerned ordinary fever treatments, but 7 pages had been marked with the same 3 letters found on Arthur's chart. BH7. Helena compared the pages. Each patient had received a sweet-smelling sedative, followed 3 hours later by a stimulant. The alternating doses weakened the heart, while creating symptoms that resembled several natural illnesses. Frederick's name did not appear. His age, weight, and symptoms did. Wren had identified him only as patient R1. Julian gripped the edge of the table. "My brother complained of burnt fruit before he died." Helena looked up. "You never told me that." Wren said it was the fever changing his sense of taste. Julian's voice broke on the final word. Helena felt the old instinct to comfort him rise within her. Once, she would have taken his hand and told him he had been young, frightened, and deceived. She closed the case notes instead. "Your grief explains why Wren gained your trust. It does not excuse what you did with that trust tonight." "I know. No, you are beginning to know." Hoofbeats sounded outside. Thomas Reed entered with 2 riders who had followed after his wound was dressed. He carried a clean glass jar sealed with wax. Inside was the yellow-stained cloth Helena had pulled from Arthur's throat. "Mrs. Bell recorded where it was found," Reed said. "Mr. Hale and Magistrate Cole both signed as witnesses before we left." Helena examined the seal, unbroken. The object now had a traceable path from Arthur's bed to Reed's custody. Wren could call it meaningless, but he could no longer claim Helena had invented it alone. Mrs. Finch held the jar near a lamp. "The yellow is not medicine," she said. "It is dye." She pointed toward the scorched edge. Tiny blue threads crossed the linen. Helena remembered the green thread repairing Wren's SilverCase and the numbered paper strips sewn inside the Belhaven medicine satchels. "Hospital lining," she said. The cloth was cut from inside a medical bag. Mrs. Finch nodded. The older Belhaven bags were blue linen dyed yellow on the outer face. 2 earlier details had joined into one fact. Wren had carried Belhaven equipment into Arthur's nursery, then used part of it to silence him. Julian stared at the jar. "What do you require from me?" he asked. "Not protection." "Then what?" "Your exact obedience for the next 2 hours. You will not announce us, confront Wren, or sign anything. If we find Arthur, you will let me examine him before anyone moves him." Julian's pride fought the condition. Then he bowed his head. "You have my word." Helena did not tell him that his word no longer reassured her. A frail voice came from the rear of the schoolhouse. "Belhaven has another entrance." An elderly man stepped from behind a curtain. His left hand shook, and one side of his face sagged from an old illness. Mrs. Finch introduced him as Matthew Crane, a former hospital porter. Helena remembered him only vaguely from her father's notes. Crane had carried the numbered medicine bags between Belhaven's private ward and Wren's laboratory. When several patients died, he attempted to report the doses. Wren had him declared confused and removed. "The main doors are watched," Crane said, "but the laundry tunnel opens near the river." He produced an iron key stamped with a raven and the number 7. Julian stared at it. "My family crest." "Your mother paid for the private ward," Crane replied. The words landed harder than any accusation Helena could have made. Julian swayed as though the room had shifted beneath him. Helena took the key, wrapped it in paper, and asked Reed to record Crane's statement. The porter signed, with a trembling mark. Mrs. Finch and Julian witnessed it. At last they possessed a living witness, a documented object, and records connecting Wren to both Ravenshire heirs. Then glass shattered. A flaming bottle struck the cabinet. Fire raced across her father's Belhaven notes. Men outside shouted. Helena pulled Crane away, while Julian smothered the flames with his riding coat. Reed protected the sealed jar beneath his body. Through the broken window, Helena saw a rider disappearing between the cottages. Wren had discovered their refuge. She reached into the burning cabinet and dragged out the metal document box. The heat blistered her palm, but the pages inside remained intact. For one breath, victory seemed possible. Then Crane cried out. The iron key was gone from Helena's hand. Mrs. Finch lay unconscious beside the open rear door, and muddy footprints led toward the river. Wren had taken the only known entrance into Belhaven. From somewhere beyond the trees came 3 measured bell strokes. 2:30. They had 30 minutes left before Arthur's second dose. Helena did not pursue the rider. Wren wanted them to waste the remaining minutes following him through the woods. She knelt beside Mrs. Finch. The woman's pulse was steady, but blood darkened the hair above her ear. "Reed, remain with her and protect the jar." The constable shook his head. "You will need me at Belhaven. I need one witness and one piece of evidence to survive the night. Wren has already tried to destroy both." Reed looked toward Julian. "The Duchess gave you an order," Julian said. "Obey it." Helena noticed the change but had no time to acknowledge it. Matthew Crane led them down the river path. Rainwater rushed between the trees, turning the ground into a black, shining slope. "The tunnel door cannot be opened without that key," Julian said. Crane shook his head. "The key opens it from outside. The laundry women never carried one when they left." "There must be an inner release," Helena said. "If someone reaches it." They emerged beside the river at 12 minutes before 3. Belhaven Hospital stood beyond a high wall, its dark windows concealed behind overgrown ivy. No sign identified the building. No lantern marked the gate. Yet smoke rose from one chimney. A carriage waited in the yard, Lady Margaret's carriage. Helena found the tunnel entrance, half hidden beneath the riverbank. The iron door bore a raven-shaped plate with a narrow keyhole at its centre. Julian struck it with a stone. The metal did not move. "Stop," Helena said. She ran her fingers along the plate. The raven's left wing was cleaner than the rest, polished by years of contact. She pressed it. Something clicked inside the wall. The door opened an inch. Crane stared. "I never knew." The laundry women did. Helena entered first. The tunnel smelled of damp linen and old chemicals. At its far end, they climbed a narrow stair into a basement filled with rusted beds, empty crates, and blue and yellow medical bags. One bag lay open. The silver medicine case was gone, but its velvet lining remained. 7 circular impressions marked the fabric. Helena cut away the lining and gave it to Julian. "Keep it dry." A bell rang upstairs. 3 o'clock. They ran. At the top of the stairs, Two magistrates' officers blocked the corridor. Behind them stood Dr. Wren, his silver case in one hand and the stolen iron key in the other. Arthur lay on a wheeled bed beyond him. His face was motionless. Helena tried to reach him. The officers seized her. Wren smiled. "You arrived precisely when I said you would." Magistrate Cole stepped from the adjoining room. His expression was grim. Helena understood. Wren had not merely fled to Belhaven. He had sent word ahead, claiming that Helena intended to abduct the heir and destroy the institution's records. On a table lay her father's scorched document box. It was empty. The Duchess was found carrying forged medical papers, Wren said. She set fire to her own dispensary, attacked a constable, and followed the heir here despite lawful confinement. "Mrs. Finch has the records," Helena said. Wren lifted the iron key. Mrs. Finch signed a statement before witnesses. She claims the Duchess forced her to produce false documents. "That is a lie." "Then ask her." He already knew Mrs. Finch was unconscious and unable to contradict him. Cole displayed another page. It bore Mrs. Finch's signature. Helena recognized the mark, but not the words above it. Wren had taken an old supply receipt from the clinic and written the statement over the signature. The apparent proof had been turned against her. Julian stepped forward. "Release my wife." Cole shook his head. "You formally accused her and transferred the heir's medical care to Dr. Wren. Your later conduct suggests emotional interference. My order was obtained through fraud. That must be determined at a hearing." Wren opened the silver case. Helena saw the empty 7th compartment. "Where is the blue vial?" "Your Grace remains obsessed with objects she cannot produce." Arthur's eyelids fluttered. Wren selected a clear vial and filled a syringe-like glass instrument used for administering medicine through the mouth. Helena fought the officers. "If you give him that, he may not survive until dawn." Wren addressed Cole. "Observe how she attempts to obstruct treatment." Cole hesitated, but did not intervene. Julian moved between Wren and the bed. "No further dose will be given. You lack medical authority. Then I will give you another kind." Julian faced the magistrate, the officers, and the hospital attendants gathering in the corridor. "My mother financed a private ward here under the Ravenshire name. My brother was treated in it before his death. I knew payments continued after Belhaven supposedly closed, and I chose not to question them because Dr. Wren had protected me from suspicion." Lady Margaret emerged from the adjoining ward. "Julian, be silent," he continued. "I signed the order against my wife without reading its full authority. I ignored contradictions, allowed evidence to be destroyed, and placed my son in this man's control. Record every word. If these acts bring a parliamentary inquiry upon Ravenshire, then let it come." Cole's face changed. The confession damaged Julian's family, his standing, and perhaps his right to retain official appointments. It did not prove Helena innocent, but it prevented Wren from presenting the Duke as an unquestioning ally. Wren's smile disappeared. He signalled to the officers, "Remove both of them." As Helena was pulled away, she looked at Arthur. A faint yellow stain marked his lower lip, yet no puncture or redness appeared inside his mouth. The second dose had not been administered. Wren had staged the bell and prepared the instrument for witnesses. Why? Then Helena remembered the SilverCase's open laudanum compartment and the bitter almond scent on its hinge. Wren had repeatedly displayed one substance while using another. He needed observers to remember the wrong medicine. The missing blue vial was not Arthur's poison. It was the antidote. Wren could not destroy it until Arthur died, because he might need to revive the boy if an official witness arrived too early. Helena stopped struggling. "Dr. Wren," she said, "you cannot give Arthur the final dose at dawn." He looked at her. "You emptied the last bottle into Frederick 9 years ago." A flicker of contempt crossed his face. It was enough. Helena now knew the lie he would be compelled to correct. Wren's vanity would never allow anyone to believe his precious compound had been exhausted years earlier. As the officers pushed her into the locked ward, she turned to Julian. "Ask him to produce all 7 vials at the hearing." Julian understood that she had formed a plan. At sunrise, Wren intended to prove Helena's guilt before the magistrate, the Ravenshire trustees, and the estate physicians board. Helena would let him. She needed only to force him to identify a bottle whose contents he could not explain without revealing knowledge that an innocent physician should never possess. The locked ward contained 6 empty beds and 1 barred window. Helena examined the door, the floorboards, and the cold fireplace. No medicine had been left inside. Wren would not risk allowing her access to anything that might help Arthur or herself. From the next room came the scrape of a chair. "Julian?" "Yes." The wall between them was thin enough to carry a low voice. "Can you reach the corridor?" "No. There are 2 officers outside." "Then listen carefully. Wren believes the hearing will condemn me. We must make him confident enough to present the SilverCase himself. What do you need me to do?" "For once, exactly what I ask." Julian did not object. Helena instructed him to demand the presence of the Ravenshire trustees, Magistrate Cole, 2 independent physicians, and every witness who had handled the surviving evidence. He was also to insist that Arthur remain visible throughout the hearing. "Do not accuse Wren of using the blue vial," she warned. "Do not mention the antidote. And if Arthur worsens, then you break every door between us." A pause followed. "I should have done that hours ago." Helena closed her eyes. Regret could not return the lost hours, but his public confession had created an opening. She would use it without mistaking usefulness for forgiveness. "Send someone to protect Mrs. Finch and Reed," she said. "Wren will try to prevent them from reaching Belhaven." Julian called for Magistrate Cole and demanded that 2 officers ride to the schoolhouse under Cole's personal seal. By 6 o'clock, carriages began arriving. The hearing was held in Belhaven's former operating theatre. Tired benches surrounded a central table beneath tall windows. Pale morning light exposed peeling walls, rusted instruments, and the raven emblem carved into the wooden gallery. Arthur lay on a narrow bed beside the magistrate. His breathing remained faint but steady. Helena was brought in under guard. Her torn gown had dried stiff against her shoulder, and smoke darkened her face. Wren had wanted her to appear disordered. She walked to the centre of the room without lowering her head. Julian stood among the Ravenshire trustees. Lady Margaret sat beside the family solicitor. Dr. Wren occupied the place normally reserved for the presiding physician. His silver case rested prominently before him. He attacked first. "The Duchess possessed both knowledge and opportunity," he began. "She prepared the heir's medicines, controlled the dispensary, and resisted every effort to examine her records. When discovery became inevitable, she burned those records and attempted to abduct the child." He displayed the bottle bearing Helena's forged label. Then he produced the statement supposedly signed by Mrs. Finch. Several trustees looked at Helena with open disgust. Wren continued. "Her later accusations concerning Belhaven are a desperate invention based upon papers she created herself." "Were those papers recovered?" Helena asked. "The documents were destroyed during her assault upon the schoolhouse." "Then your claim that I forged them rests upon documents no one can inspect." A small silence followed. Wren shifted to the treatment chart found beneath Arthur's bottle. "This page contains my handwriting, but the additional names and symbols were added later." Helena looked toward Julian. He rose. "I saw the chart before Dr. Wren regained possession of it. The ink, spacing, and symbols appeared continuous. I also witnessed Wren receive legal control of the dispensary minutes before the building burned." Wren gave him a pitying look. "His Grace has already admitted that emotion impaired his judgment." "My judgment failed when I trusted you," Julian replied. "The failure does not prevent me from describing what I witnessed." Helena turned to Magistrate Cole. "What time was Thomas Reed summoned?" Cole consulted the original note. 8:45. "What time did Mrs. Bell first call me to Arthur?" 9:28, the nurse answered from the rear bench. "And when did Arthur first show signs of illness?" "Shortly after 9. Helena faced the trustees. "Dr. Wren summoned a constable to arrest me before anyone had accused me and before I had entered the nursery." Wren spread his hands. "The child's condition began earlier than the nurse understood. Yet you did not record an earlier examination." Helena then called Samuel Pike. The young guard confirmed that Wren knew which room Helena occupied, despite not being present when Reed chose it. He also described the smoking basket and Reed's injury. Mr. Hale produced the scorched wool, wrapped and signed by the men who had removed it. Wren dismissed each fact separately. Helena joined them. "The physician prepared my confinement before the illness was known, located the room without being told, and appeared beside the device used to fill it with smoke. These are not 3 coincidences. They are one timeline. The theatre grew still. Reed entered with Mrs. Finch leaning on his arm. A fresh bandage covered the midwife's head. Wren's composure faltered. Mrs. Finch denied making any statement against Helena. She identified the page as an old supply receipt whose original writing had been removed. Reed presented the sealed jar containing the yellow and blue cloth. Cole verified the signatures across the wax. Mrs. Bell identified it as the object Helena removed from Arthur's throat. Matthew Crane then described carrying numbered medicine bags to Belhaven's private ward. Wren stood abruptly. "The man is mentally unsound." "Then why," Helena asked, "did you steal his key?" "I recovered hospital property." "You previously said Belhaven had been closed for years. How could a key to its active tunnel remain hospital property?" Wren realized the contradiction too late. Helena approached the central table. "Open your SilverCase." He did not move. Magistrate Cole ordered him to comply. Wren lifted the lid. 6 vials rested inside. The 7th compartment was empty. Helena placed the preserved velvet lining beside the case. Its circular impressions matched the bottles exactly. "You carried 7 vials into Ravenshire House. Where is the missing one?" "The Duchess stole it. I was searched, confined, and continuously guarded. No vial was found. Then an accomplice took it." "Name the substance." Wren looked toward Arthur. Helena saw him calculate which lie remained safest. "Laudanum," he said. "Your case already contains a labeled laudanum bottle. A second preparation. What color was it?" "Blue." There it was. Impossible knowledge. Helena had never publicly described the missing vial's color. Wren had just identified an object he claimed she had stolen before he could examine its absence. She did not expose the mistake yet. Instead, she asked Julian to bring forward the brass candlestick taken from the east room. The Duke placed it on the table, its dented base facing upward. Lady Margaret's face lost all color. Helena removed the loosened green felt. Arthur's folded note remained inside the hollow base. "The craftsman who repaired this candlestick is waiting outside," Helena said. "He will authenticate the seal beneath the felt and prove the base had not been opened before last night." She unfolded the note but did not read it. First, she looked at the silver case, the 6 remaining vials, and Wren's ink-stained fingers. "One final comparison is required," she said. "After that, everyone in this room will know who gave Arthur the poison and why Dr. Wren needed the heir alive until this hearing began." The independent physician stepped forward to break the seal on the first vial. The independent physician removed the first stopper and touched a glass rod to the liquid. "It is not laudanum," he said. Wren's jaw tightened. The physician tested the remaining bottles while Magistrate Cole recorded each result. 2 contained ordinary sedatives. 1 held a heart stimulant. Another contained diluted foxglove. The final pair held compounds Helena recognized from her father's Belhaven notes. The supposed laudanum compartment contained a clear liquid with the same bitter almond odor that had clung to Wren's silver case. Helena faced the gallery. Dr. Wren did not carry a single poison. He carried a sequence. One substance slowed the heart and clouded the mind. Another produced convulsions. A third could briefly restore the patient, allowing him to decide whether the victim recovered or died. She placed her father's surviving case notes beside the velvet lining. That was Belhaven Method 7. Matthew Crane confirmed the numbered bags. Mrs. Finch identified the symptoms recorded in 7 former patients. Julian testified that Frederick had complained of the same burnt fruit taste before his death. Wren struck the table. "None of this proves the Duchess did not use my medicines." "No," Helena said. "You proved that yourself." She repeated his answer. "You identified the missing vial as blue, although no one in this room had publicly described its color. You knew, because it was missing, before I entered Arthur's nursery." Wren looked toward Lady Margaret. That single glance shifted every eye in the theatre. Helena unfolded Arthur's note. "Grandmama said it would make me sleep." Lady Margaret rose. "A frightened child's scribble proves nothing. The handwriting has been authenticated," Magistrate Cole said after the candlestick craftsman confirmed the sealed base, and Mrs. Bell identified Arthur's writing. Helena approached the Dowager Duchess. "Yesterday afternoon, Mrs. Bell saw the blue vial in your hand. You gave Arthur the first preparation before supper. When he said it tasted strange, Wren supplied another dose and planted a forged bottle in my dispensary. This is absurd. Then permit the officers to search you." Lady Margaret moved toward the exit. 2 officers blocked her. Inside a concealed pocket in her wrapper, they found a blue vial sealed with yellow wax. The raven pressed into it matched the private Belhaven ward key. Wren tried to dismiss it as stolen property. Helena stopped him. "You said the missing vial contained laudanum. Let the physicians test it." The liquid inside was neither laudanum nor poison. It was the stimulant required to reverse the final stage of Belhaven Method 7. Wren had kept it within reach, because Arthur was never supposed to die before Helena was condemned. The boy's apparent recovery would have established Wren as his savior, while Helena faced imprisonment or execution for attempted murder. Afterward, Arthur could be kept chronically ill, too weak to contradict his grandmother and entirely dependent upon Wren's treatment. Magistrate Cole turned to Lady Margaret. "Why?" Her composure finally fractured. "Frederick intended to close Belhaven," she said. "He threatened to expose every payment and remove me from the family accounts. He would have ruined Ravenshire. So you let Wren kill him," Julian said. "I preserved this family for you." "No, you made me Duke by murdering my brother." Wren stepped away from her. Lady Margaret saw the abandonment and laughed bitterly. "Silas promised Frederick would merely become too ill to challenge us. Then the fool died." Last month, Helena began comparing the estate's medical expenses with the medicines delivered to the tenants. She would have found Belhaven. Helena understood the final mechanism. Wren had billed Ravenshire for medicines used in his private experiments. Her dispensary records proved that most supplies never reached the estate. Once she requested the missing invoices, he and Margaret needed to remove her access before an audit exposed both the theft and Frederick's treatment. Arthur had overheard them arguing beside the old nursery cabinet. Poisoning him created the crisis Wren needed. Discredit Helena, seize her records, burn the dispensary, and secure complete medical control of the heir. Julian's signature had made every step possible. Wren suddenly seized the tested stimulant and lunged toward Arthur's bed. Helena caught his wrist. The vial shattered on the floor. Julian restrained him, but it was Helena who removed the silver case from his reach and placed it in Magistrate Cole's custody. Wren did not confess. He did not need to. The authenticated notes, the timed summons, the preserved cloth, the forged statement, the experimental compounds, Arthur's message, the blue antidote, and Lady Margaret's admission formed a chain no denial could break. Dr. Silas Wren was arrested for attempted murder, unlawful medical experimentation, destruction of evidence, forgery, and conspiracy. Frederick's death was referred for a formal inquest. Lady Margaret was charged as his accomplice. Her private income and correspondence were seized pending investigation, and she was removed from every position of authority over Arthur and the Ravenshire household. Then the room turned toward Julian. He did not hide behind their crimes. Before the trustees, servants, magistrates, and physicians, he named his own choices. He had accused Helena without investigation, denied her access to their child, transferred authority to Wren, ignored evidence, and allowed fear to outweigh truth. "I cannot blame manipulation for decisions I made willingly," he said. "Every public accusation against my wife is withdrawn. The false statement bearing her name will be corrected in every court and household to which it was sent." He surrendered his government appointment and asked the trustees to suspend his control over all private Ravenshire medical funds. Helena's clinic would be rebuilt from his unentailed property and placed under an independent trust governed by Helena, Mrs. Finch, and elected tenant representatives. He also signed a separation agreement granting Helena a permanent residence, separate maintenance, control of her marriage settlement income, and Arthur's daily care. Any future decision about their marriage would belong to her. Julian approached her only after the documents were witnessed. "I do not ask you to forgive me." "Good," Helena said, "because I cannot." His face tightened, but he accepted the answer. Arthur stirred. This time, when the boy reached for his mother, Julian did not stand between them. He stepped aside. Helena lifted Arthur into her arms and carried him from the operating theatre. Mrs. Bell walked beside her, holding the recovered treatment records. Behind them, Julian remained beneath the carved raven that had concealed his family's crimes for 12 years. 3 months later, Helena opened the new village clinic in the restored parish schoolhouse. The silver case remained locked in the magistrate's evidence room, She kept no object from Belhaven except Arthur's note, preserved between 2 clean pages of her own treatment ledger. Julian lived at Ravenshire House and visited Arthur only by Helena's agreement. He wrote to her each week, but never demanded an answer. On the clinic's first morning, Helena unlocked the medicine cabinet with the only key. Arthur placed his hand in hers. Together, they opened the doors.